Hey, welcome to episode 6. My name is John, and joining me right now is Joyce Ngala. Hello, Joyce.
Hello.
If you haven't had the pleasure of meeting Joyce, she leads our prayer ministry here, the Boiler Room. Perhaps you've heard of this before. It's not an actual boiler room, but it really is providing the heat for the ministry of Mission Church. And Joyce is now on our team, leading all the efforts of our prayer ministry. So thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Joyce and I go back a number of years. Her husband, Tobias, and I met years ago. They planted and led churches in Africa and in London, and now you guys are here with us. Yes. And I'm so excited to have you join me to talk about prayer. And so, this Holy Week devotional, as you well know, and you've been a big part of this, wouldn't it be amazing if our whole church could practice prayer and fasting during Holy Week? And so this has been amazing. I'm so proud of you guys for leaning into this, for engaging in this, for practicing this. So important. And the Lord's Prayer, we've been talking about this for a number of weeks as a church. It's so important to understand that Jesus taught us this prayer, not just so that we would know prayer, but that we would actually pray.
Yeah, do it.
Right. So he's like, hey, not that you just need another liturgical prayer, although there's value in that. He's teaching us this prayer so that we would actually pray. And this is something that we do over and over again. And the point of prayer isn't prayer. The point of prayer is connection with God. And so this is what the Lord's Prayer is all about. And so one of the ways we practice prayer ongoing is through fasting. And there's a number of different ways that I talked about in my message, but fasting is one of those ways. And for us as American Christians, it's very foreign. Fasting is probably the least experienced spiritual practice, many would say, especially, I think, for Chicago Christians. So we love food.
Surrounded by food.
Yes. And so I shared in the conclusion of this series 3 purposes of fasting, and have been sharing this kind of throughout this devotional as well. As fasting, why do we do this? Well, it helps us grow in our own holiness. And so we talk about finding and following Christ. This is what fasting helps us do. It helps us grow in a very significant way. It also amplifies our prayers. When Jesus is like, you need to add some fasting to that. If you're wondering why you're not getting that breakthrough, he says some things only are going to happen through prayer and fasting. And then the third reason is to stand with the poor. And really, as we are hungry, we're reminded that there's a lot of people in this world that are going to go without food today. And so it can really, in an important way, break our heart for the hunger that exists in this world. So those are the 3 reasons. But I would love to talk to you about your experience of fasting. So when was your first time you fasted? How old were you?
I was probably about 10 years old.
Okay, 10 years old. Where were you at that time?
Nairobi, Kenya. So I grew up in Kenya. I was part of a church that taught fasting and practiced it on a very regular basis.
Really? So this is a big part of kind of the normal cadence, rhythm of the church. So you would fast starting at age 10. Was this an annual thing or monthly or quarterly, or do you remember even?
It was actually, when we learned the discipline, it was weekly. So we would pick a day in the week. I remember doing mostly Tuesdays or Wednesdays. I don't know why. But every Tuesday, every week, I knew I'm not eating today until 6 p.m.
It's been cool for me. I've been doing a lot of research on fasting. John Mark Comer, huge influence on me, and he helped me understand like the whole like Wednesday, like 2 days a week thing is like very traditional, like going way, way, way back. So you guys are definitely on point with that. What is fasting? What has that been like for you? What have been some things you've learned over the years as you've practiced this discipline?
Fasting is such a big part of my Christian walk. And I love that you mentioned growing in holiness, because for me, it's the way that I connect to God. It forces me to focus on God and to work on our relationship and to listen to Him every single day.
Yeah. And so you've fasted, I know you just finished a 40-day water fast only. We probably don't recommend starting out there. But so you've done different lengths of fast before. Do you have a most common kind of fast?
The 3-day fast is the one, mainly because, 1-day fasts are great, but at some point it's like endurance. The more you do it, the less you feel the intensity of it. So. And
have you developed a kind of a rhythm of that 3-day fast? Do you know when that is, or is it random for you?
Now it's random.
Yeah.
This year, the prayer team and us are doing, the first week of the month fast. So within that 1st to 7th of the month, I will pick 3 days or 7 days.
Okay. Awesome. So it's one of the cool things our prayer team is doing. I love that you're establishing that. Has that caused less people to want to be on our prayer team?
No, they're so psyched. I love the team. It's been great.
Some are watching right now. They're like,
been
I don't want to
great.
be on the prayer team. All right. So when it comes to those three purposes of fasting, share just a little bit more. I'll just pick one of those three as you're thinking about our people. And I've kind of helped you get up to speed on, this context. You're not from here. You weren't raised here like I was. That like, hey, this is a big food area. And, food is really good. And yet we're learning this week, food isn't God.
It's not.
Food isn't God. And so God is filling that space in such a really neat way. But when it comes to those three areas of holiness or amplifying your prayers or, having solidarity with the poor, maybe just pick one of those and talk just for a minute on what might be helpful for our people to know.
Okay. My most recent experience, like you mentioned, was the 40-day fast that I did at the beginning of the year. And I fasted not really to get anything from God, but just to hear him and to spend time with him in that sense. And so that period of time was growth in holiness for me, because the more I took time to talk to God and to spend with him, the more he started to nitpick in my life and say, oh, and by the way, you have that sin and you need to get rid of that. And you've been harboring unforgiveness here. Things I didn't even realize were inside me, that he was now raising and saying, you haven't completely dealt with this aspect of your life. Let's do it now. So growing in holiness for sure. That's been a big one for me.
And, one of the things that I think is so important to emphasize is a lot of times fasting, you see the power and impact of it kind of in the rearview mirror, right?
After.
In the moment, it can be like, oh, man, I don't know, is this working? Is this worth it? But when you look back, especially on this last one, you're like, oh my goodness, you see the value in that.
It avails so much.
Yeah.
So much. Yeah.
Well, I want to bring us to a conclusion, because at the end of each of these, I've encouraged you to, okay, now as a family or as roommates or as friends, begin to think about tomorrow. And tomorrow, what you're going to choose to do is you're going to choose what you're going to fast from and for how long. And the two options are food, which is the biblical traditional fast. But we also added in screens, technology, which for many that are watching, that's even more difficult than giving up food. So choose right now, what are you going to fast from and for how long? And this is our final day. This is it. We're coming to a conclusion, and my hope and my prayer, and I think our challenge, is that you wouldn't stop here, meaning that you begin to think about, okay, what might your fasting rhythm be from this point on? Is it a monthly fast? This is something that I've decided to do after reading Lead with Prayer, that book. I felt so convicted that I need to have a plan. And so the first Monday of the month is when I'm fasting. And I think the Lord is probably going to increase that over time. But right now that's been like, oh man, I'm not doing that alone. And I would encourage you to invite some other friends in your missional community or on your team or as a family. How cool would that be? That we begin to develop, all right, we're going to have a system for this. And we're going to make sure that this is now part of the rhythm of our life. So important, right? As we find and follow Christ, all ages and stages, prayer, this is something that we're going to persist in here at Mission Church. In fasting and prayer, man, those two things go hand in hand. That's all we have for day 6. Thank you for being on this.
Thanks for having me, John. I appreciate it.
We'll see you guys soon.